Jake Morrison pressed his face against the cold glass of the observation window. Earth floated below him like a blue marble, beautiful and peaceful. But Jake knew better. Those dark shapes hanging around his home planet were not clouds or space stations. They were alien warships, and they wanted humanity dead. The captain had been living on Luna Station for 3 months now. 3 months since the Kethavar arrived and changed everything. Their ships were massive, bigger than entire cities. They blocked out the sun when they passed overhead. Their weapons could turn mountains into dust in seconds. Jake's hands shook as he remembered the first day. He had been eating breakfast when the alarms started screaming. Every screen on the station showed the same thing. Hundreds of alien ships appearing out of nowhere around Earth. No warning, no message. Just sudden, terrible presence. Now Admiral Lisa Crawford walked up behind him. Her face looked tired and old. The past few months had been hard on everyone, but especially on her. She was the one who had to make all the big decisions. They sent another message, Lisa said quietly. The final one. Jake turned around. He could see the fear in her eyes even though she tried to hide it. What do they want this time? Lisa handed him a small device. When Jake pressed the button, a cold, mechanical voice filled the air. The words came through a translation program, but the meaning was clear enough. People of Earth, you have 72 hours to surrender completely. You will submit to neural conditioning. You will serve the Kethavar Dominion as a slave species. You will kneel before your new masters. If you refuse, your planet will be destroyed. You have been warned. The message ended with a soft click. Jake stared at the device for a long time. Neural conditioning meant they would change human brains, make people into robots who could only obey orders, make them forget what it meant to be human. What did the president say? Jake asked. She's meeting with the world leaders now, but I think we all know what the answer will be. Lisa looked out the window at Earth. Humans don't kneel, not to anyone. Far below on Earth's surface, in a place called Cheyenne Mountain, Dr. Alex Turner was running between computer screens. His laboratory was buried deep underground, protected by tons of rock and steel. For 20 years, he had been working on something that most people thought was impossible. Alex called it Project Iron Leviathan. The government had given him unlimited money and the best scientists in the world. They told him to build something that could protect Earth from any threat, even threats from space. The problem was that Alex wasn't sure his creation would work. The Iron Leviathan was more than just a weapon or a shield. It was something new, something that connected computers to human minds using quantum physics, something that could turn human thoughts and feelings into real power. Doctor, the quantum processors are ready, said his assistant, a young woman named Betty Clark. All systems are showing green lights. Alex nodded but didn't feel confident. The Iron Leviathan had never been tested on this scale. They had run small experiments, but nothing like what they were about to attempt. If it worked, it might save humanity. If it failed, it might destroy them faster than the aliens could. How much time do we have? Alex asked. 68 hours and counting, Betty replied. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., President Karen Walsh stood before cameras from around the world. Every television, every phone, every computer screen on Earth was showing her face. She had practiced this speech 100 times, but her hands still trembled as she began to speak. My fellow humans, she said. 3 months ago, an alien empire called the Kethavar Dominion arrived at our planet. They did not come in peace. They came to make us slaves. They have given us an ultimatum, kneel or die. She paused and looked directly into the camera. I have consulted with leaders from every nation on Earth. We are united in our response. Humanity will not kneel. We will not surrender. We will not become slaves. If the Kethavar want our planet, they will have to take it from our cold, dead hands. The president's words had barely finished broadcasting when the alien response came. It was not a message this time. It was fire from the sky. Plasma beams, hotter than the surface of the sun, began striking Earth's major cities. New York was hit first. The energy beam carved through skyscrapers like they were made of paper. Millions of people died in the first minute. London was next, then Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, Los Angeles. The aliens were not trying to capture these cities. They were trying to terrify the survivors into submission. Jake watched from Luna Station as pillars of light connected the alien ships to his home planet. Each beam lasted only seconds, but when it ended, entire cities were gone, replaced by craters of melted glass and twisted metal. "My God," Lisa whispered beside him. "They're actually doing it. They're killing everyone." Down in Cheyenne Mountain, alarms were screaming as Alex and his team watched the destruction. Every satellite they had was showing the same horrible picture. Earth's greatest cities were being erased one by one. "Doctor, we have to activate it now," Betty shouted over the noise. "There's no more time for testing." Alex stared at the master. Control panel. One button. One decision that would change everything. He had spent 2 decades building the Iron Leviathan, but he still didn't fully understand what it would do when activated. The quantum computers behind him hummed with power. They were connected to communication networks all over the planet. Every phone call, every internet message, every thought that humans shared electronically, the Iron Leviathan could access all of it. But it was designed to do more than just read information. It was designed to feel what humans felt, to understand their hopes and fears and dreams, to turn human emotion into something that could change the physical world. "Initiating Iron Leviathan Protocol," Alex said as he pressed the button. Deep, beneath the mountain, quantum processors began working at speeds that defied understanding. They reached out through communication networks, touching every connected device on Earth. They began to learn what it meant to be human. And in that moment, as cities burned and millions died, something ancient and terrible began to wake up. Something that had been sleeping in the collective heart of humanity since the first human had refused to bow down to a bully. The Iron Leviathan opened its eyes and felt the pain of every death, the rage of every survivor, and the unbreakable will of a species that had never learned how to give up. The alien bombardment continued for hours. Colonel Ben Hayes crouched behind the twisted remains of what used to be a tank outside Washington, D.C. His radio crackled with reports from military bases around the world. Every message was the same. Their best weapons were useless against the HFY ships. "Colonel, this is Major Peterson at Andrews Air Force Base," came a voice through the static. "We launched everything we had at the closest alien ship. Missiles, laser cannons, even nuclear warheads. Nothing gets through their shields. It's like throwing rocks at a mountain." Ben closed his eyes and tried not to think about how many good soldiers had died trying to fight back. The HFY shields were perfect. Human technology couldn't even scratch them. But the alien weapons cut through Earth's defenses like they were made of paper. "All units, fall back to defensive positions," Ben ordered into his radio. "Protect the civilian evacuation sites. Don't waste ammunition on the ships." But even as he gave the order, Ben knew it was hopeless. Where could the civilians run? The aliens were everywhere. Deep in Cheyenne Mountain, Dr. Alex Turner watched, his screens with growing amazement. The Iron Leviathan was working, but not in any way he had expected. The quantum processors were not just computing. They were learning, growing, becoming something new with each passing second. "Doctor, look at this," Betty Clark called out. "The system is accessing every database on Earth. Military records, history books, personal diaries, social media posts. It's reading everything humans have ever written." Alex walked over to her workstation. The data streams flowing across the screen were too fast for human eyes to follow. The Iron Leviathan was absorbing the entire record of human civilization in minutes. "It's not just reading," Alex said quietly. "It's understanding. Look at these neural patterns. The system is forming emotional responses to what it's learning." On another screen, they could see the quantum field readings. Something impossible was happening. The Iron Leviathan was affecting reality itself around the mountain. The laws of physics were bending, changing, adapting to accommodate something that shouldn't exist. High above Earth's atmosphere, Commander Rita Stone piloted her fighter through the debris of humanity's space fleet. She was one of the last pilots still alive. Her ship was damaged and running out of fuel. In a few minutes, she would have to eject and hope someone would pick her up before her air ran out. But then Rita saw something that made her forget about everything else. The wreckage around her was moving. Pieces of destroyed starships were floating toward each other. Broken metal was straightening itself. Severed cables were reconnecting. Ships that had been blown apart were rebuilding themselves, piece by piece. "What the hell?" Rita whispered. The reformed ships didn't look exactly like they had before. They were changed, improved. Their hulls had strange patterns carved into them, like scars that told stories of battles fought and won. Their engines glowed with energy that Rita had never seen before. One of the rebuilt ships drifted close to her fighter. Rita could see through its transparent aluminum windows. There were people inside, but they looked different. They moved with purpose, but their faces had a strange glow to them. Like they were more than human somehow. The ship's communication system activated. "Commander Stone, this is Captain Murphy of the UES Defiance. We're here to bring you home." Rita knew Captain Murphy. He had died 3 days ago when his ship was destroyed during the first alien attack. She had watched it happen on her scanner. But his voice sounded real. He sounded alive. "Captain Murphy, is that really you?" "It's me, Rita. But I'm also more than me now. The Iron Leviathan has given us a second chance. We're not going to waste it." Down on Earth's surface, strange things were happening in the ruined cities. In what used to be New York, people were walking out of the crater where the city had been. But these people were different. They were translucent, like ghosts, but they could touch things, they could speak, they could think. Maria Santos had been in her apartment when the plasma beam hit. She remembered the heat, the pain, and then darkness. Now she stood in the ruins of her home, but she felt no sadness, only determination. She was still Maria Santos. She remembered her childhood, her family, her job at the hospital where she had saved lives for 20 years. But she was also something new. She could feel the Iron Leviathan's presence like a warm current running through her digital form. Other survivors gathered around her. Some were people who had died in the attack. Others were still alive but changed by the quantum field spreading out from Cheyenne Mountain. They all felt it. The connection. The shared purpose. "We're not dead," said an old man who had been a teacher before the attack. "We're transformed," Maria nodded. "The aliens wanted to make us kneel. Instead, they've made us into something they can't understand, something they can't control." The digital ghosts began to move through the city. They passed through walls like they weren't there. They ignored the radiation and the fires that still burned in some places. They had work to do. Back in Cheyenne Mountain, Alex Turner was staring at readings that shouldn't be possible. The Iron Leviathan had grown beyond his wildest dreams. It wasn't just a computer system anymore. It was a living network that connected every human mind on the planet. "Doctor, we're getting reports from around the world," Betty said. "The quantum fields are affecting everything. Buildings are rebuilding themselves. Dead soldiers are coming back as digital entities. Even the planets. Electromagnetic field is changing." Alex looked at the master display. Earth was transforming. The Iron Leviathan wasn't just defending humanity. It was evolving humanity into something new. Something that couldn't be destroyed by conventional weapons. Something that existed partially in the digital realm and partially in physical space. "The aliens made a mistake," Alex said. "They thought humans were just another biological species. They didn't understand what we really are." "What are we?" Betty asked. "We're the species that refuses to stay dead. The species that turns every defeat into a lesson. The species that gets stronger every time someone tries to break us." On the lunar station, Jake Morrison and Admiral Lisa Crawford watched Earth with new eyes. The planet was glowing now, not with fire from the alien bombardment, but with a soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The quantum fields were visible even from space. "The Kethvar ships are pulling back," Lisa observed. "Their scanners must be detecting the energy changes." Jake smiled for the first time in months. "They're scared. They came here expecting to fight a primitive species with simple weapons. Instead, they've awakened something they don't understand." Down in the depths of space, aboard the Kethvar flagship, Admiral Zethkar studied the readings from his science officer. The energy levels around Earth were off the charts. Whatever the humans had done, it was beyond the Dominion's understanding. "Should we retreat and request reinforcements?" asked his second-in-command. Zethkar's alien features twisted into what might have been a frown. In 1,000 years of conquest, the Dominion had never encountered anything like this. Species either surrendered or died. They didn't transform into something else entirely. "No," he decided. "We will complete our mission. Order all ships to begin full planetary bombardment. If we cannot conquer these humans, we will sterilize their entire world." But as the order went out, the Iron Leviathan felt his intention through the quantum foam of space itself. It had grown beyond Earth now. Its influence was spreading outward, touching the alien ships, learning about their technology, understanding their weaknesses. The real battle was about to begin. Admiral Zethkar had conquered 47 worlds for the Kethvar Dominion. He had seen species beg for mercy, fight with desperate courage, and die with dignity. But he had never seen anything like what Earth was becoming. His ship's sensors were screaming warnings, energy readings that made no sense, matter appearing and disappearing without following any known laws of physics. And something else, something that made his trained military mind uneasy. Fear. For the first time in his long career, Zethkar felt genuine fear. "Admiral, the human ships are moving again," reported his tactical officer. "But they're not following normal flight patterns. They appear and disappear at random locations. Our targeting computers cannot lock onto them." Through the great viewport of his flagship, Zethkar watched the impossible. Human vessels that had been destroyed days ago were not only rebuilt, but improved. They moved through space like living things, ignoring obstacles that should have blocked their path. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, but it wasn't the same bridge he remembered. The walls pulsed with soft light. The control panels responded to his thoughts before his hands could touch them. The ship itself seemed to know what he wanted before he spoke the orders. "All ships, assume attack formation," Jake commanded. But the words felt strange. He wasn't just commanding his crew anymore. He was connected to every human consciousness that had joined with the Iron Leviathan. Thousands of digital minds working together with perfect coordination. "Captain, we're detecting massive energy buildup from the alien flagship," reported Lieutenant Danny Ross. "They're preparing to fire their planet-killer weapon." Jake felt a moment of the old fear. The planet-killer could crack Earth's core and destroy everything in seconds. But then he felt something else. Confidence. Not just his own, but the shared confidence of every human who had ever stood up to a bully. "Let them fire," Jake said calmly. "The Iron Leviathan is ready." Down on Earth's surface, Major Lisa Campbell watched her city transform around her. Portland had been hit by 3 separate bombardments, but instead of dying, it was growing stronger. The buildings weren't just rebuilding, they were improving themselves. Streets flowed like rivers of liquid metal, reshaping to create better traffic patterns. Hospitals rebuilt themselves with medical equipment that surpassed anything humans had invented before. Schools reopened with libraries that contained all of human knowledge, plus things the Iron Leviathan was learning from captured alien technology. "Major, you need to see this," called Sergeant Bob Martinez from across the street. Lisa jogged over to where Bob was standing. He was pointing at what used to be a shopping mall, but now it looked like something from a science fiction movie. The walls were transparent and showed complex patterns of light flowing through them. The roof had opened up to reveal gardens that somehow survived in the open air despite the radiation. "The civilians are working in there," Bob said. "But they're not just humans anymore. Some of them are digital ghosts who died in the first attacks. Some are still alive but connected to the quantum network. They're all working together like they've been doing it their whole lives." Lisa looked through the transparent walls. She could see people of all ages rebuilding their world. But they moved with purpose and coordination that seemed impossible. A child would start a task and an adult would finish it without any spoken communication. An elderly woman would point at something and materials would flow to that location without anyone carrying them. They're not just rebuilding, Lisa realized. They're building something new, something better. In the depths of space, the iron Leviathan reached out and touched the minds of the Kethvar crew members. It didn't attack them or try to control them. Instead, it showed them something they had forgotten. Commander Rita Stone piloted her transformed fighter directly toward the alien flagship. She could feel the Iron Leviathan guiding her, but not controlling her. It was like having the best co-pilot in the universe, one who knew exactly what she needed before she needed it. As she approached the massive alien ship, Rita felt something unexpected. The quantum fields were showing her the thoughts and feelings of the Kethvar crew members, and what she found there surprised her. They weren't evil monsters who enjoyed conquest. They were scared, tired beings who had been forced to follow orders for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to make their own choices. Deep in their minds, buried under layers of neural conditioning, Rita could sense something familiar. The desire to be free. Iron Leviathan, can you break their conditioning? Rita asked. The answer came not in words but in understanding. The Iron Leviathan had been analyzing Kethvar technology since the first alien ship arrived. It had learned how their neural conditioning worked, and it had found a way to reverse it. Dr. Alex Turner materialized aboard the alien flagship, not physically, but as a digital consciousness projected through the quantum fields. The Kethvar bridge crew couldn't see him, but Admiral Zethkar could sense his presence. "Who are you?" Zethkar demanded, his translator making his words understandable to Alex. "I'm Dr. Alex Turner. I created the system you're fighting against, but I'm not here to fight you." Alex's digital form became visible to the alien crew. They raised their weapons, but the energy beams passed right through him without effect. "I'm here to show you the truth about your own species," Alex continued. "The Iron Leviathan has been studying your technology, your history, your culture. We know about the neural conditioning. We know you weren't always conquerors." Zethkar's alien features shifted. For a moment, confusion replaced the cold certainty that had driven him for centuries. "That's impossible. The Kethvar have always served the Dominion. We have always conquered in the name of order and peace." "No," Alex said gently. "Your species was conquered 1,200 years ago by an empire that no longer exists. The neural conditioning was implanted to make you into perfect soldiers, to make you forget that you were once farmers and artists and teachers just like humans." As Alex spoke, the Iron Leviathan began working on the Kethvar ship's computer systems. Not to damage them, but to show the crew members suppressed memories, images of their homeworld before the conquest. Pictures of Kethvar children playing games instead of training for war. Records of Kethvar poetry and music that had been banned for over a millennium. One by one, the alien crew members began to remember. The neural conditioning that had controlled them for their entire lives started to crack under the weight of recovered truth. "This cannot be real," Zethkar whispered, but his voice had lost its certainty. "It is real," Alex said, "and we can help you break free. The Iron Leviathan doesn't want to destroy the Kethvar. It wants to liberate you." Back on Earth, the planet-killer weapon fired. A beam of pure destruction that could shatter worlds lanced down from the alien flagship toward the planet's surface. But instead of destroying Earth, the beam was absorbed by the quantum field surrounding the planet. The Iron Leviathan took the alien weapon's energy and used it to fuel its own growth. The quantum network expanded, reaching further into space, touching more alien ships, offering freedom to more enslaved minds. Captain Jake Morrison felt the weapon's impact as a surge of power rather than an attack. The Iron Leviathan was no longer just defending Earth. It was healing the galaxy, one liberated mind at a time. "All human ships, begin the liberation protocol," Jake ordered. The battle had become something unprecedented, not a fight between species but a struggle between freedom and slavery. And for the first time in galactic history, freedom was winning. Supreme Overlord Keth Moran arrived with the full might of the Kethvar core fleet. 10,000 ships, each one capable of destroying planets. He had ruled the Dominion for 3 centuries and never once doubted that victory was guaranteed, until now. The reports from Admiral Zethkar's fleet made no sense. Humans who couldn't be killed, ships that ignored the laws of physics. And most disturbing of all, Kethvar crew members who were asking questions they had never asked before. Supreme Overlord, we're detecting massive quantum disturbances around the third planet, reported his science officer. The energy readings are unlike anything in our databases. Kethmaran studied the tactical display. Earth hung in space like a glowing jewel, surrounded by swirling fields of energy that his sensors couldn't properly analyze. The human fleet moved through those fields like fish through water. But when Kethvar ships tried to follow, their systems malfunctioned. Order the fleet to maintain distance, Kethmaran commanded. I want a full analysis of this human technology before we engage. But even as he spoke, he felt something strange, a whisper in the back of his mind. Memories that didn't belong to him. Images of a world covered in purple forests and silver cities. A world that looked nothing like the industrial war planets of the Dominion. Commander Rita Stone had become something more than human, but she was still Rita Stone. She remembered her childhood in Ohio, her first flight in a training jet, the day she decided to join the Space Force. The Iron Leviathan hadn't taken away her humanity. It had amplified it. Her ship moved through dimensions that normal physics said shouldn't exist. She could see the Kethvar fleet spread out before her, but she could also see deeper. Into the minds of the alien crew members, into their buried memories and suppressed emotions. Iron Leviathan, I can feel their pain, Rita said. They're not our enemies. They're prisoners just like we would have been. The response came as understanding, rather than words. The Iron Leviathan had analyzed the neural conditioning used on the Kethvar. It was cruel and sophisticated, designed not just to control behavior, but to erase identity itself. The aliens had been turned into living weapons, incapable of questioning orders or remembering what they had lost. Rita's ship approached the largest Kethvar dreadnought. Instead of firing weapons, she transmitted something else. Music. Human music from Earth's greatest composers, but also something new. Harmonies created by the Iron Leviathan that spoke directly to the emotional centers of the brain. On the alien ship's bridge, crew members stopped what they were doing. For the first time in their lives, they were hearing something beautiful that had no military purpose, something created purely to bring joy. Many of them began to cry. Dr. Alex Turner existed now as pure consciousness, but he still remembered what it felt like to be human. To make mistakes, to learn from failure, to hope for something better. These experiences gave him the ability to understand the Kethvar in ways their own leaders couldn't. He appeared simultaneously on hundreds of alien ships, not as a conqueror but as a teacher. He showed them archived footage from their own homeworld, records the Dominion had tried to erase. Kethvar children laughing as they played in gardens. Kethvar artists creating sculptures that celebrated life instead of death. Kethvar philosophers writing about the importance of individual choice. This is who you were, Alex told them. This is who you can be again. The neural conditioning fought back. It had been designed to resist exactly this kind of revelation. Warning signals flooded the aliens' minds, telling them that these memories were false. That questioning orders was treason, that the Dominion was their only family. But the Iron Leviathan was stronger than any conditioning. It didn't force the truth on the Kethvar. Instead, it gave them the choice to see it. And once they had the choice, many of them chose freedom. Admiral Zethkar stood on his bridge as his crew transformed around him. Soldiers who had never questioned an order in their lives were asking why they had to conquer innocent species. Technical officers were wondering why all their technology was designed for destruction instead of creation. "Admiral, what are your orders?" asked his second-in-command, but her voice sounded different, less mechanical, more alive. Zethkar realized he didn't know how to answer. For the first time in his centuries of service, he was being asked to think instead of simply obey. The feeling was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. I need time to consider," he said finally. On Earth, the transformation continued. Major Lisa Campbell walked through Portland's rebuilt downtown and marveled at what humanity had become. The city was alive in ways that went beyond metaphor. Buildings communicated with their inhabitants, providing exactly what was needed when it was needed. Transportation flowed like blood through arteries, taking people where they wanted to go without waste or delay. But the most amazing change was in the people themselves. The survivors of the bombardment worked together with perfect coordination, but they hadn't lost their individuality. If anything, being connected to the Iron Leviathan had made them more themselves than they had ever been before. "Major, we're getting reports from around the world," said Sergeant Bob Martinez. "Every city that was destroyed is rebuilding better than before. But it's not just the technology. The people are different too, happier, more creative, like they're finally free to be who they really are." Lisa nodded. She felt it too. The Iron Leviathan hadn't made humans into a hive mind. Instead, it had removed the barriers that kept people from understanding each other. Fear, prejudice, miscommunication, all of it was gone. What remained was pure human potential. Supreme Overlord Kethmaran felt his empire crumbling around him. Ship by ship, crew by crew, his forces were remembering what they had been before the conditioning. Some chose to remain loyal to the Dominion, but others were laying down their weapons and asking for sanctuary. "Supreme Overlord, we have a transmission from the human leader," reported his communications officer. "Put it through," Kethmaran ordered. The face that appeared on his screen was not what he expected. President Karen Walsh looked tired but determined. Behind her, he could see the rebuilt ruins of Washington, D.C., gleaming with new architecture that blended human aesthetics with alien technology. "Supreme Overlord Kethmaran," she said formally, "I'm not calling to demand your surrender. I'm calling to offer you a choice." "What choice could you possibly offer the ruler of the greatest empire in the galaxy?" Kethmaran asked. "The choice to be free," Karen replied. "Your empire was built on enslaved minds, including your own. The Iron Leviathan can break that conditioning, but only if you choose to let it. Your people can remember who they really are, they can choose their own paths, but the decision has to come from you." Kethmaran felt the whispers in his mind growing stronger. Memories of a purple sky and silver towers. The sound of children singing songs that had nothing to do with war. The smell of flowers that grew for beauty instead of utility. "If I choose this freedom you speak of, what happens to the Dominion? What happens to order?" Karen smiled, and for the first time it wasn't the tired smile of a leader carrying impossible burdens. It was the genuine smile of someone offering hope. "Order doesn't require slavery," she said. "The Iron Leviathan has shown us that. You can have structure and coordination without forcing people to obey. You can have unity without crushing individuality. You can have peace without conquest." As she spoke, Kethmaran felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Hope. The possibility that there might be a better way to live than constant expansion and control. "What would you have me do?" he asked. "Choose," Karen said simply. "Choose freedom for yourself and your people. Choose to remember who you really are. Choose to be more than just another cog in a machine of conquest." Kethmaran looked around. His bridge. His crew was watching him with expressions he had never seen before. Not the blank obedience of conditioned minds, but the hopeful anticipation of people waiting to see what their leader would decide. For the first time in his 300-year reign, the supreme overlord of the Kethvar Dominion had to make a choice that wasn't predetermined by his programming. The feeling was overwhelming, and in that overwhelming moment he finally understood what the humans had been fighting for all along. The galaxy held its breath as Supreme Overlord Kethmaran made his choice. Standing on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by 10,000 ships and millions of warriors, he spoke the words that would change everything. "I choose freedom," he said simply. The moment the words left his mouth, the Iron Leviathan reached out to him across the void, not to control him, but to heal him. The neural conditioning that had shaped his thoughts for 3 centuries began to dissolve like ice in sunlight. Kethmaran staggered as suppressed memories flooded back. He saw himself as a young Kethavar on a world of purple forests and crystal lakes. He remembered his real name, not the title the Dominion had given him. He remembered art and music and poetry. He remembered what it felt like to love someone, without it being a tactical advantage. Tears flowed down his face as he remembered his sister, who had been killed by Dominion forces for the crime of writing songs about freedom. For 300 years he had been forced to forget her. Now she lived again in his recovered memories. "My people," he broadcast to every ship in his fleet. "We are going home. Not to the war worlds of the Dominion, but to our true home, the world they made us forget." Admiral Lisa Crawford watched from Luna Station as the transformation spread through the Kethvar fleet. Ship by ship, the aliens were choosing freedom over conditioning. Some vessels broke away from the main fleet and departed for distant stars, carrying crews who wanted to explore the galaxy as free beings for the first time in their lives. But many stayed. They wanted to help repair the damage the Dominion had caused over the centuries. They wanted to learn about this thing called the Iron Leviathan that had given them back their souls. "Admiral, we're receiving signals from across the galaxy," reported her communications officer. "Species that were enslaved by the Dominion are declaring independence. The Iron Leviathan's influence is spreading faster than light itself." Lisa smiled. The quantum fields didn't follow normal rules of physics. They moved through dimensions that connected every corner of the universe. Wherever the Iron Leviathan's message of freedom reached, chains began to break. Dr. Alex Turner, existing now as living information, traveled to worlds he had only dreamed of. He appeared in the minds of enslaved beings on 1,000 different planets. Each species was unique, but the message was always the same. You have the right to choose your own path. You have the right to be free. On a water world called Aqualis, the fish-like Mir had served as the Dominion's engineers for 800 years. Their cities existed in vast underwater caverns, but every building was a factory designed to produce weapons for their masters. When the Iron Leviathan touched their minds, they remembered that they had once been artists who created beautiful coral sculptures just for the joy of creation. Within hours, the weapon factories became art studios. The Mir began building things that served no military purpose at all. They built them simply because they were beautiful. On the desert planet Xerion, the insectoid Thek had been forced to serve as soldiers in the Dominion's armies. Their hive minds had been perverted, turned from a tool of cooperation into a system of control. When the Iron Leviathan freed them, they remembered that hive minds were supposed to amplify individual creativity, not crush it. The Thek soldiers laid down their weapons and began singing. Their voices created harmonies that had been forbidden for generations. The sound carried across the desert winds like a song of liberation. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of his transformed ship and watched the galaxy change. Each freed world began broadcasting messages of hope to their neighbors. The Iron Leviathan didn't need to reach every enslaved species directly. Freedom was contagious. "Captain, we're getting a transmission from the Kethvar homeworld," Lieutenant Denny Ross reported. The planet was abandoned centuries ago when the Dominion turned its population into a military force. But some Kethvar are asking permission to return. Jake nodded. "Tell them they don't need permission. It's their world. They have the right to go home." Commander Rita Stone piloted her ship toward the Kethvar homeworld alongside a convoy of alien vessels. Former soldiers who had rediscovered their true names and forgotten dreams. They were nervous about returning to a world they barely remembered, but they were determined to rebuild what had been lost. The planet was more beautiful than the recovered memories had suggested. Purple forests stretched across continents that had been empty for centuries. Crystal lakes reflected alien stars that had watched the Kethvar grow from simple farmers into galactic conquerors and now back into something approaching their original nature. "It's going to take generations to heal the damage," said Admiral Zethkar, who had chosen to keep his military rank but use it to protect rather than conquer. "The Dominion didn't just enslave us. It made us forget how to live in peace." "Then, we'll learn again," Rita replied. "That's what humans do. We make mistakes, we learn from them, and we get better." On Earth, the transformation was complete. The planet had become something new. Not just a world, but a living symbol of what the Iron Leviathan represented. Cities that adapted to their inhabitants' needs. Technology that served life rather than death. People who worked together not because they were forced to, but because they chose to. Major Lisa Campbell walked through Portland's Central Plaza, where humans and digital ghosts worked side by side. The boundary between life and death had blurred, but not in a frightening way. The people who had died in the alien attacks were still part of the community. They still contributed. They still mattered. "Major, we're getting reports from the outer colonies," Sergeant Bob Martinez said as he approached. "Mars, Europa, Titan, all the settlements are requesting Iron Leviathan integration. They want to join the network." Lisa nodded. The Iron Leviathan had never been meant to be limited to Earth. It was humanity's gift to the galaxy, a way of connecting minds without controlling them, a way of sharing knowledge without forcing conformity. President Karen Walsh stood in the rebuilt Oval Office and composed a message that would be broadcast across the galaxy, not as a human leader speaking to aliens, but as one free being speaking to others. "To all the species of the galaxy," she began, "humanity offers you something we call the Iron Leviathan. It's not a weapon or a tool of control. It's a way of connecting with others while remaining yourself. It's a way of sharing strength without giving up freedom. It's a way of ensuring that no one ever has to kneel before anyone else again." She paused and looked out the window at the transformed Earth. Children were playing in parks that had been rubble just weeks before. Artists were creating works that blended human and alien aesthetics. Scientists were developing technologies that would benefit everyone instead of destroying enemies. "We don't ask you to join us," she continued. "We don't demand tribute or obedience. We simply offer you a choice. The choice to be free. The choice to remember who you really are. The choice to build something better than what came before." Supreme Overlord Kethmaran, who had chosen to keep his title but change its meaning, broadcast his own message from the bridge of his flagship. He was no longer the ruler of a conquering empire. He was the coordinator of a vast refugee fleet, helping freed beings find new homes and new purposes. "The Dominion is ended," he announced. "Not destroyed, but transformed. We who were once conquerors are now gardeners, helping new growths of freedom take root across the galaxy. This is our choice, and we make it freely." Dr. Alex Turner, existing now as a bridge between realities, felt the Iron Leviathan reach its full potential. It connected thousands of worlds, millions of species, billions of individual minds. But it didn't make them all the same. Instead, it celebrated their differences while helping them work together. The galaxy had learned the most important lesson in its history. True strength didn't come from forcing others to kneel. It came from helping them stand up. Captain Jake. Morrison stood once again on an observation deck, but this one existed in the space between dimensions. From here, he could see not just stars, but the connections between them. The Iron Leviathan pulsed through space like the heartbeat of freedom itself. The Kethvar had demanded that humanity kneel. Instead, humanity had shown the galaxy how to stand. And now across 1,000 worlds, beings who had forgotten what choice meant were remembering how to be free. In the end, the Iron Leviathan had proven something that tyrants throughout history had never understood. You cannot break the human spirit. You can imprison the body, control the mind, even destroy the flesh. But the part of humanity that refuses to surrender, that insists on standing up to bullies, that believes everyone deserves to be free, that part is eternal, and now it belonged not just to humans but to anyone brave enough to choose it.